Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Transportation Committee meeting of Wednesday, February 24th, 2016. I'm Councilman Mike Bonin, your chair. I am joined by my colleagues, Mr. David Rue from the 4th District and Mr. Paul Koretz from the 5th District. And we are going to begin. As is our custom at this committee, we will start with what I call the multimodal roll call. Since the last time this committee has met, which will be the past 2 weeks, by a show of hands, who has commuted by train? Okay, about 10 folks. Who has commuted by bus? Okay, an equal number, and most of the hands were not the same both times. Pedestrian? Oh, come on, you've all commuted by foot at some point. Everybody, raise your hand. Bicycle? Okay. Uber, Lyft, taxi? Oh, we got 2 taxis. No Uber and Lyft today. Okay. Colleagues, I'm going to recommend for today's agenda that we approve on consent items 2 through 6 and 8 through 11. Are there any objections?
Which one? 1 through
2 through 6 and 8 through 11.
11 is the second.
Okay, so without objection, we will approve items 2 through 6 and 8 through 11 on consent. And that brings us to item number 1.
Item number 1 is the General Manager of LADOT to present a verbal report relative to the Department's ongoing projects and programs and recognition of LADOT employees for outstanding service.
Please, come on up.
Good afternoon, Councilman, committee members, and I do want to just flag one thing before I go to the employee recognition, which is that starting a couple weeks ago and going through March 19th, almost every weekend there is an event associated with the Great Streets Challenge grants. The department co-funded those along with the Mayor's Office, Department of Cultural Affairs, and they really are fantastic. Councilman Bonin had one in the Mar Vista neighborhood in his district. Last week I was out at Crenshaw and Florence in CD 8 for a fantastic one-day diagonal crosswalk. And several coming up almost every Saturday. There's one on Central this Saturday, then Van Nuys and Pacoima, then Cesar Chavez, and North Figueroa as well. These are pretty fantastic events, really show what we mean when we talk about great streets. It's kind of an ephemeral concept, and just want to recognize the department's support in putting on these really fantastic grassroots community events. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about a few LADOT staff members that we have here today to be recognized. And first, we're going to focus on our accounting division. So the administrative arm of the Department of Transportation, I like to think of as some of the quiet heroes of the city. Their work is often behind the scenes. It's under the radar. But what they do is just as essential as a traffic officer directing traffic or an engineer who designs street redesigns, because they really do keep the department running. They execute our grants, they invoice our projects, and we're very, very proud of the hard work that they do. So first I'm going to recognize, just please stand when I say your name, Uma Villas, a Senior Accountant 2. In Uma's current assignment, she has encountered challenges that tested her resilience and resolve in delivering results. As an example, Uma has been operating without staff accountant for 3 years to support her for the citywide Metro Rail program. The Metro Rail projects provide a regular revenue stream to the city through full cost recovery reimbursements that need to be rebilled on a recurring and regular basis. As a result, it requires adequate staffing resources to support this function. Despite the lack of staff, Uma continues bringing in revenue for DOT and 10 other city departments of over $15 million on an annual basis. She's effectively administered the Metro Rail reimbursement program and managed to meet targets for the last consecutive 3 years. Her whatever-it-takes attitude makes her adapt to the demands of new situations and to the successful completion of assigned tasks. Thank you, Uma. Second, Mary Lou De Vera, a Senior Accountant 2. Mary Lou is a senior accountant who manages Proposition A and Measure R funds. She has scheduled her retirement this coming July, but she continues to be engaged in the process improvement to increase efficiency and better account the books. As an example, she implemented a new accounting process to earmark funding for critical programs just a week ago. She works diligently and provides excellent customer service. She effectively administers the Proposition A fund section, producing high-volume work that is comprehensive in scope, complete in details, and accurate in content. Mary Lou provides training and mentoring to her staff to make sure that she passes on the institutional knowledge prior to her retirement. Mary Lou's work ethic and dedication set a great example to others. Thank you, Mary Lou. And now from our operations group, I want to recognize Brian Doherty. Brian is a transportation engineering aide leading the traffic surveys group. This group is responsible for collecting traffic data for the department for various studies and report. Year after year, despite decreasing staff levels and increasing workload, his dedication and commitment to meeting demands has earned him great respect throughout the department. Recently, a DOT engineer who needed time-sensitive requests to be filled approached Brian. After scheduling the work, he was approached by another DOT engineer who also needed things right away. Does this sound familiar, Councilman? Through very fast negotiations, Brian was able to have all the requests completed to the satisfaction of everyone involved. He is extremely responsive, timely, and always looks for ways to get the job done. Brian is one of the most reliable employees the department has ever seen. He exemplifies many of the department's core values, and LADOT and the city are lucky to have Brian Doherty in our ranks. Thank you, Brian.
So let me just add my thanks to Uma and to Mary Lou and to Brian as well. I really appreciate, Ms. Reynolds, that you do this once a month here at committee. I want to thank the three of you in particular because the work you do is vitally important and it is absolutely invisible to most residents of Los Angeles. It's easy for folks to know what a cop or a firefighter does. It's easy for them to notice the guys on the streets who are out striping the crosswalks, but the work you do is invisible, and so most people don't notice it. And I think it's easy, even within this building, for us to forget what you do and how indispensable it is. And so I want to thank you for what you do and the example you've set, and also for, I think, the standard you've set within the department and the way that you have, I think, through your example, been able to boost morale and give folks something to strive for to meet your example. So thank you very much, all three of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
With that, I can answer any questions that any of the committee members have.
Colleagues, anything for the GM?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I will open and close general public comment because we've received no general public comment cards for today. So thank you. And that will bring us next to item number 7.
Item number 7 is a Harris-Dawson Buscana resolution relative to the establishment of an oversized vehicle restricted area on West 59th Place between 10th and 8th Avenue.
All right, we have 3 public comment cards on this one. Rosanna Estrada, Erica Estrada, and Omar Estrada. Please come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosanna Estrada, and I am a resident of 3139 West 59th Place, which is the area in question. I would like to express my gratitude to you all for taking the time to listen to our concerns. Recently, an oversized vehicle, specifically an RV, was parked in our street for 2 months, and this proved to be an issue because the street where we live is already narrow enough as it is. A lot of cars park there because a lot of residents live there. And this becomes an issue when you have cars coming and going at the same time. Personally, my vehicle has been sideswiped before because the streets are so narrow, which leads me to the point that having an RV there only exacerbates the issue. And my second point is that having an RV on the street really limits the visibility of residents choosing to exit their driveway. So this is why I'm in favor of the resolution in question. Thank you.
And for the record, are you Erica or Rosanna?
I'm Rosanna.
Rosanna, okay.
Yeah.
Erica, please, go ahead.
I'm Erica. Thank you. Good afternoon, Council Committee members. I'm also here to express my support for this item. Having oversized vehicles on our street is very difficult. We live in an area of South Los Angeles which has a higher population density, 4.2 people per household. That's over 2 times the average for the county. And we already have limited parking, and due to the Crenshaw line construction, we have street closures, parking restrictions. And so prohibiting oversized vehicles on the street would really help residents find parking when we're getting home late from work at night. And it also restricts line of sight for residents exiting their driveways. And the street is so narrow, especially on days when we have to put our trash out. It's like having a lane closure without any traffic management. So I would really appreciate it if you guys would approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. And you would be Omar.
Yes. So I'm also in favor of this motion. Like they've mentioned, it's a very narrow street, highly impairs visibility coming in and out of driveways where the driveways that are parked or next to the RV. As she mentioned, as they both mentioned, on trash pickup days, the trash bins end up in the middle of the street. So you have to be ducking around them and avoiding traffic oncoming. That's the main thing, is just it makes it really tough to get by and not get in a car accident when you have to be dodging large vehicles, trash bins, and oncoming traffic.
Great. Thanks all three of you for taking time out of your day and coming down to join us at Transportation Committee. First time at City Hall?
No.
No? Okay, cool.
Yeah, you look like pros. Very well, very articulate, very impressed with all three of you.
Do we have a motion to approve? Moved and seconded. Without objection, the item is approved.
Thank you so
You're welcome.
much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, that brings us to item number 12.
Item number 12 is continued for our February 10, 2016 meeting. It's a Vaughn and O'Farrell motion relative to directing DOT and the Bureau of Engineering to report in regard to Caltrans requirements for relinquishing State Route 187 and State Route 1.
Good afternoon. I think we can make this really quick for the benefit of my colleagues, since it's a CD11 issue. I understand that we have received hard copies of the negotiating schedule, and everybody seems to be working well together. So what I'd like to do at this time is just acknowledge that we've got that and we're in good shape, and continue this until April 13th.
That's right.
Sound cool?
It's perfect. Agreed.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. That brings us to item number 13.
Item number 13 is a DOT report relative to revised rules and procedures for the Preferential Parking District program.
Good afternoon. Really enthusiastic to be here today, because I think we have made serious strides in helping improve parking in the City of LA by revising the rules and procedures for preferential parking districts. We know that parking is very personal to everybody in the City of LA, and when it comes to something about where they can't park in front of their house, or there's some kind of inability for them to find convenient parking within reason, preferential parking district or a temporary preferential parking district becomes a solution. The problem that we've had in the past is that with our huge backlog, with our antiquated rules, that it would take so long for us to be able to go ahead and address those needs. And so what we have before you today is a set of revised rules and procedures where we've been able to streamline the process. We think that we have incorporated certain elements to help establish preferential parking districts where they couldn't be established before. So for instance, when you have a future light rail station, and we know there's going to be a problem there, but there's not a problem existing. And so what we often have to do is wait for that problem to occur before we can do anything to tackle it. So we have provisions to establish a preferential parking district in those circumstances. Other times we have isolated areas where there's not enough blocks to meet the preferential parking district requirement. And so we allow for provisions to where we have exceptions for that. And also we provide for temporary preferential parking districts to have a path to eventually become a preferential parking district. And much to the desire of Councilmember Koretz, meeting with him and his wife, we were able to figure out how to deal with the existing stickers that we have, and incorporated recommendation to go with hang tags. And so I'll talk about that a little bit later. But overall, we think that we have a really winning set of rules, and we hope that you agree and recommend approval.
So just to sort of set some context for this, the backlog with PPDs
Yes.
was so bad that we actually put a moratorium on them for a while.
Yes.
What year was that when we put the moratorium on them?
It was before my time. Let me see. Do you guys know? 2009?
2009 or so. And then as a result, because people still needed some relief, we started using temporary preferential parking districts,
Yes.
which are an easier, faster process.
It is a faster process, but it does sometimes create more of an administrative burden on the end. But it is another path.
So your goal here in your new guidelines is to, while eliminating that backlog, which is still about 9 months of work or so?
Well, the backlog's probably about 2 years, but we think with the revised set of rules, with efficiencies that we're going to create and filling of positions, we might be able to get rid of that within 6 to 9 months.
Okay, all right. So might on the 6, but absolutely certainly on the 9, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you will also convert the existing temporary ones to permanent ones.
Yes. What we can do is, and we realize that there's so many temporary preferential parking districts, we're not going to say that, in the next 9 months, we're going to convert those all over to preferential parking districts. We're going to phase those in, but we're going to try to deal with the backlog that has been there for quite some time. So people that have been struggling for some kind of relief for the past couple of years, we're definitely going to address those. But we have provided a path for those temporaries to become permanent.
Okay, all right. So if someone is applying today for a PPD, how long does it take them today before these rules go into effect?
It's probably an average of about 2 years.
Okay, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Agreed.
Under the new system, how long should it take?
We believe that we can have it established, again, taking aside any kind of backlog, we believe with the current process, it should take about 6 months.
6 months with the new guidelines?
With the new guidelines.
Once the backlog is
Once the
cleared.
backlog is eliminated, we believe that we can do it in as little as 6 months.
So let's say we approve these, council approves it right before or right after recess, say mid-March. If someone applies for one at the end of March, while you still have the backlog, how long can they anticipate it will take?
I'm guessing maybe about, depends how quickly we can go through that backlog. If we can go through that backlog in 6 months, and depending on how much demand we get, because now we're opening it up for preferential parking districts, initially it may be up to a year, but our goal is to reduce that to the minimum possible.
And so talk me through the steps on what happens between someone calling my office or one of my colleagues' offices and them getting the district approved and the stickers or the placards.
So what we do, and we try to revise the rules to make it a little bit more clear on what that process is, because right now it was just a series of lines and it wasn't really intuitive what you needed to do. So with the new set of rules, we highlight the different steps, and the first one is you have a letter of interest. It could come from a neighborhood group, it can come from the council office, but it's somebody saying that we have a problem and we need something to be addressed. We need something in place. Then LADOT will have an initial meeting with that group, the requester, to find out what the problem is. Is it something that could be taken care of with less restrictive measures? For instance, is it just a matter of changing the existing parking restrictions? Or is it something that warrants a preferential parking district? And assuming that it does not or could not be solved with a lesser solution, such as just changing out signs, then we go to a petition phase. And so the petition is to let people know that we are proposing something, and it's to have them have a voice in saying that if they want to participate in this program or they do not want to participate in this program. And those petitions will specifically have the restrictions that are being proposed so they can, either agree with it or disagree. And while the petition's going on, or after the petition, sometimes they could go concurrently, LADOT is working on a survey, parking studies. So we're going out there to see what is the extent of the problem. Does it actually meet the criteria? Is it something that maybe is just one day a week? Is it something sporadic? But it's really to help us understand what is the problem that we're trying to fix. And then also after our studies and after meeting with the public, then we come back with a recommendation, and the recommendation will go to Transportation Commission, and Transportation Commission will be the public hearing venue for everybody to comment on this. And following the public hearing, assuming that Transportation Commission agrees with the findings, then it'll go to City Council. Following City Council approval, then we go to sign fabrication, and hopefully with the new rules, we're going to have more of those standard signs in stock. So we're counting on saving time there as far as any kind of fabrication. It goes to posting, and then we maintain a review to make sure that people or actually have the interest in the preferential parking district in so much as that they're buying permits and that it remains sustainable.
So one of the things that worries me about that is whether or not we have the signs in stock or they have to be fabricated. What's the likelihood that we'll be able to have an adequate supply in stock?
Well, what we're proposing through the rules is to have standard signs. Before, when you used to have a preferential parking district opportunity for the people to come in, they could pick anything under the sun. And so that's actually what helped create part of the backlog, is trying to work with them to help everybody come to a consensus on what that parking restriction should be. And then we had to fabricate those signs, and that, either fabricated in-house or it'd have to go out to a contract. So what we did is we took that, limited the number of options to what are the predominantly the most used options, most common options, and this is very common with other cities. And so by having that reduced number, we can actually keep a stock in our sign shop, which would thereby eliminate the need to having to fabricate the signs at a very last minute or waiting for the contractor to develop it for us. We should have that stock inside the warehouse and be able to post very quickly.
You mentioned how, I thought you said, I want to make sure I understand you correctly, that right now, if there's going to be a big impact on a neighborhood, say a Costco with a ridiculously small parking lot is opening, and there's going to be a big impact, we have to wait for the problem to happen currently, and then you have to wait 2 more years, essentially.
Yeah.
We're now going to have a sort of an anticipatory process?
So we've had special provisions in here where there is if there's a future light rail, that we know that there's going to be a station there, and it's obvious that there's going to be a parking problem, or a mobility hub, that we can, in anticipation of it opening, we can establish a preferential parking district. Or if there's certain areas where it's an isolated area where they can't meet the minimum threshold for a preferential parking district, such as the 6 blocks, because there's only 3 blocks and it's over on the hillside, but yet they have some kind of problem, we can again create a preferential parking district, waive the minimum criteria there. And then also we have issues, which I believe CD 11 is familiar with, where we have adjacent jurisdictions, whether it be LA County or Culver City, where they have a preferential parking district in their neighborhood, and it only affects 1 or 2 streets on our neighborhood, but because it doesn't meet the threshold for the preferential parking district criteria, we can't do anything. So under these rules, we're able to take that in consideration and help create a preferential parking district. So it helps us be able to address a number of different issues where we couldn't do it before.
Well, that's very important. I was going to ask about the sort of spillover effect from Culver City or Santa Monica. But on the anticipatory, when you answered my question, you said if it's an expo station or a mobility hub, what if it's something that's not an expo station or a mobility hub, and it's a nightclub that's going to be opening, and they don't have a parking lot because it's a grandfathered use, and the neighbors know that there's going to be an impact on their streets?
Yeah, unfortunately for these rules, it doesn't allow us to do that. We would actually have to see if there is a problem. Sometimes the nightclubs may generate initial problem in the beginning, but then it goes away. Other times it may not.
Well, let me push back. These rules haven't been approved yet. Why can't the rules incorporate what I'm suggesting?
Well, I would suggest that we probably need to put some kind of constraints on anything anticipatory. If you leave it open to sort of everything under the sun, perception and reality are not always the same. And so I think that it is important to put some kind of boundary on or raise the bar on when we would do something in anticipation of a problem. I think that there's still value in being able to understand the impacts of a nightclub, for example. I mean, particularly with the advent of some of the T&C options for getting around parking problems. I know in my neighborhood, there are hardly any valets anymore. because nobody drives their car to go out to bars and restaurants. So things are changing, and I think it is valuable to put some kind of boundaries. So I agree, we could come back and take a look at that, at what might be some reasonable boundaries, but I wouldn't want to have it wide open, because I think there's still value in understanding, is the perception, does it become reality or doesn't it? Because we're talking about very limited staff resources and trying to measure, fear of something that might happen versus measurable problems that exist today, and trying to address those, because we have plenty of those. We have a huge backlog to sort of get through, and I anticipate we're always going to have a lot of requests for real problems that exist that we can go out and measure. So trying to counterbalance those two things, knowing that we don't have unlimited resources, I think is important.
Ms. Martinez?
Yeah, I have two questions. In the report, you note that as part of the process to initiate a preferential parking district, that you would work with the requesting entity and the council office
Yes.
to determine less restrictive measures that can possibly mitigate some of the parking concerns. Can you talk a little bit about what an example of those measures would be?
Sure. So sometimes the neighborhood might have no parking restrictions just for street sweeping. And so sometimes what we can do is come in and say, for instance, it's going to be a 4-hour parking restriction between certain hours, which those certain hours are when, say, for instance, a nightclub or somebody else happens to heavily use that area. So in that case, just making a simple sign change might be able to address the problem, but sometimes it won't. And so, but we need to find out if there's something that we can do that's still going to be business friendly and address the needs of the community.
Sometimes the establishment of loading zones around businesses, for example, can give a place for either pickup and drop off or other needs that a business has to happen, and can address any kind of business spillover that's happening in the neighborhoods. We haven't had as much success suggesting, lesser measures, but we still think that it's valuable to go through that process because every problem is sort of unique.
Right. And what would be done with the existing temporary preferential parking districts? Would those folks, do they have to go through this new process all over again?
No. Anything that's existing or any requests that we already have logged will be grandfathered in. And so they will continue to be renewed until we get to the point where we can convert them over to a permanent preferential parking district.
Okay. But those folks don't have to go through the
No, they don't need to do anything. We're going to deal with those automatically.
And do you anticipate it needing additional staffing to be able to implement this new process?
Yeah, so we're still in the process of backfilling positions. I think a challenge for us has been space. But we are in the process of dealing with that. But I think for us to have the true space being office space, because we're over at Piper Tech, it's a little bit more constrained, but we're dealing with that. I think for us to have truly the responsive group that the city deserves, and that the residents deserve, it would be helpful to have additional resources.
I think with the end of managed hiring, we are finally able to backfill vacancies, and we did get, I think, one additional position in the budget last year. So we're talking about a group that hasn't even been at full capacity for years.
Yeah.
How many vacancies are we talking about?
Right now, I think we have 2 vacancies, and so we're in the process of trying to fill those vacancies.
So that was budgeted for?
Yes, that was budgeted for, and so we've already filled 2 vacancies. And so, as Salita had mentioned, we've had a vacancy, like a 50% vacancy rate for, I'd say, most of my career with the city, and that's been almost 19 years. So it hasn't been fully staffed for quite some time. And so we think that as we fill these positions, as we introduce efficiencies, as we change the rules, we're going to make significant strides in reducing that backlog.
That's all, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Chris.
Thank you. So just following up on the budget piece.
Yeah.
So if we fill all the existing vacancies, you think you can have this piece of the department humming, or there's additional positions that you think you'll need?
I think that once we're fully staffed and the staff has the proper training, and with the efficiencies that we're proposing through technology, I think we can have a finely tuned machine. We have very good staff there now. We just don't have enough.
And that's without additional positions?
I think that's without additional positions, but it's always helpful to increase our response time by having another position. But again, that's for our general manager to decide during the budget the priority, constantly shifting priorities in the department.
It's hard to get a clear read because they haven't been at full capacity, sounds
Yeah.
like, in at least a decade.
Yeah,
And so
more.
it's difficult to judge. Do we really need more resources? Or if we could just fill the vacancies we have, which would double our capacity, we could presumably double our efficiency and response time.
That's a very valid point. So I'm on the cautious side because I'm overseeing this group, but it could be that with what we get now, it may be what we need.
Well, that's very encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you need more, don't be shy to let us know.
We will.
But
Oh,
it
trust
sounds like you might be able to do it well with existing resources if we can just get those all filled. I'm happy to see managed hiring disappear, as I'm sure you know.
Thank you.
As far as the permits, just to go over a couple of things, so are we talking about only doing hanging passes for permanent PPD, or a choice between hanging passes and bumper passes?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I have some props here which I've been eagerly awaiting to show you. And I'll answer the question at the same time. So what we've had in the past has been stickers. This sticker had been up for, gosh, I think not even a full year, and you can see what a horrible shape it is. The protective cover has been peeling. There's actually writing down here, which you can't really see, that was done with a Sharpie, that completely faded. And I hear that this happens after just about 6 months, and this is what we had been using for several years. So we had...
And as you know, I've done personal surveys
Yes.
in various places, and I found anywhere you go, you never have less than 10% faded without being able to read them.
Yes.
So, and it's not the owner's fault, but they will get the ticket.
No, I absolutely agree. And as a matter of fact, even what we did within the rules before, even though we didn't enforce it to that degree, it was talked about if faded permits were handed in, they were to be charged $11.50, which we thought was completely unreasonable because that's a failure on our part. And so we changed the rules so that there's any kind of fading, if there's any kind of permits that are falling apart as a result of the material, it'll be replaced free of charge. And that's the right thing to do. But what I want to point out is because we had the problems like this, we're now moving to hang tags like this. And we're actually just going with the permanent hang tags. We're not giving a choice because we have issues of having to maintain stock of this and also having to maintain stock of this. And then when it comes to enforcement, it makes it that much more difficult for our enforcement officers to find the permit, whether it's going to be in the rearview mirror, if it's going to be posted on the side view window, is it going to be on the bumper. But what we are doing is we are keeping a stock of the permits because when it comes to a motorcycle, good luck trying to use this. So we're going to allow the stickers to be placed on the motorcycle, so we'll still have a stock of those. And also, it's very difficult for the quality, to get the quality, to have something that's going to be lasting a full year without fading and to not start peeling and having other issues. And we've heard a number of complaints about people having to put stickers on their bumper, which me personally, I don't want to put a sticker on my bumper. So we will be transitioning to hang tags for the annual and visitor permits.
And are those good enough quality to last a year? Because I know they're not.
Oh, yeah. So, and
They're
and
not
that's-
West Hollywood quality, which is about twice as thick as what you've got. So,
Well, there's different degrees. The visitor permit, which is only a 4-month permit, this one's a little bit more thin stock. But
so the more permanent one is
the
thicker
more
stock.
permanent is, you can't, I could pass this over to you. It's about, I'm not going to say twice as thick, but it's much thicker. Just bending, putting the same pressure, you can see the difference. And this one I specifically brought over because this had been in the field for 7 months in the sun, and it's held up tremendously. It's just a huge difference. And we're expecting these to last well beyond a year, but again, they're only annual permits. So we are looking at much better stock. And the beauty of having the hang tags is it gives you information on the back as far as what you need to remember, how to properly display it, and gives other pertinent information to the user. So
And I can't see from here, but do you still use Sharpies on them or no?
We do, and we hope to some point go to printing them on there, but right now, for the sake of being able to issue them quickly, they are Sharpies, but again, the Sharpies don't fade on this. And again, this one's been in the sun for 7 months, whereas this one, after 4 months, completely faded. So the technology, the background material that's writing on just prevents it from fading. And if you want, if you want to look at them, I could hand them.
Yeah, if you pass them along to all of us.
Now, I'll pass this one along too, because this is just an embarrassment.
Yeah, well,
I'm so
that I
proud
know.
of
I've
getting-
complained about that for 6 years, so. Now, another thing that I know you've addressed, but I'm not entirely clear how, is the fact that there are some areas that are so dense that a guest pass that only allows you to park on the block might be worthless because there's no parking on your block. So the permanent pass, you can park on the next block. Guest permit, you can't. So I think it says you now can park on the next block.
Yes.
But I'm just not, wow. I'm just not sure exactly what that means. Does
Okay.
that mean all of the next blocks, or you pick one? How do you decide exactly how that works?
So what we do is we have 3 different types of permits. We have the annual permit, which allows you to park anywhere within the preferential parking district.
Right.
We have a visitor permit, which is a 4-month permit, which allows you to park on a certain block or in other circumstances to be able to go to the next block. It just depends on the parking availability. There's some areas that it's not reasonable to keep them confined to one block because it's so limited parking. And so DOT will make the determination of to what extent you're able to go to the next block, depending on the availability. Because you have blocks that could be 50 feet, and you have other blocks that can be several hundred feet. And then you have the one-day guest permits, which you could park anywhere in the preferential parking district.
So the question is, using my example, because I think my street would be a perfect example. We've built, some huge properties on that street. There's a lot of illegal commercial activity. It's very hard to find a space. So if you parked on the next block, I'm at 100 North Kings. Is the next block 100 South Kings, or is the next block 100 North Orlando, or 100 block North Flores? How do you know where the next block is, or is it any of those next blocks?
It's just anything within the next
The
block.
intention is just within one block, could be any direction. Any of those blocks where you could find a spot is open to you.
And how will the ticket writers know exactly how that works?
They actually they have an inventory of what the parking availability is. So when we go out and do parking studies for a preferential parking district, we look at how much parking is available. Oh, for enforcement. Well, enforcement actually is we have restrictions on the permit to where they can and cannot park.
So
It's
what would it actually say on the permit? Within one block of, or?
For that specific question, I would actually have to defer to my staff that has the.
We designate 2 block faces.
2 block faces.
So this has been going on currently for corner houses.
Do you want to come to the mic?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the corner house next door to us actually is allowed to park on 3 different blocks with their guest permit, and we're only allowed to park on our block. So
Yeah,
that
that's
confuses me.
correct.
too.
I'm speaking now really as a holder of a preferential parking permit. And right now, on the visitor's permit, it specifies, in my case, the south side of Oxnard and Varna Street for my neighbor. And we would do the same on whatever we designated for the second block face. It would be on the permit. So the traffic officer can actually read that and become familiar with that and not issue a ticket improperly, because they have to read it anyway, because otherwise the visitor's permits all look alike.
So mine might be altered instead of now saying 100 block north of Kings, it might be 100 block north and 100 block south.
Absolutely.
And so it would list the 2 blocks that you
Absolutely.
can park on.
Absolutely.
Would you rather it be more flexible than that?
Well, I mean, if it gave you more blocks
Yeah.
on
So, I
either
mean,
side,
that's
but
the
I think
thing.
listing them is not a bad idea.
I think as we figure out those details, I think the intent is to give those visitor permits some flexibility. So we can think through how that is written so that it's clear to the traffic officers, and then make sure that that training is included in their sort of regular training that they get, that they'll get updated training on how to enforce with the new hang tags and those kinds of things.
And for the record, I just wanted to introduce the gentleman that came to the table. This is Pierre Gent. He's in charge of the Preferential Parking District Division, Parking Permits Division.
Nice to meet you all.
Great. Well, it sounds like you're on target, but if we can do that and give some flexibility within a block, I think that would be a great solution to the problem, as long as we figure out how to describe that so our enforcement officers understand it.
Noted. Thank you.
Hey, and thank you for your good work on this. I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate bringing it to our attention and for the genuine support that we've seen from the council offices.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very excited. I'm so happy about this. So my office could stop calling you guys and bugging you guys about this. Really excited about the hang tags too, because I purposely didn't get a permanent. I got the visitor pass because I didn't want to put the sticker on my car. So I'm very excited to hear about that. And this question is almost moot, but I still want to ask it because I guess you guys said all the backlogs will be done in 6 to 9 months.
Yes.
Very excited to hear that. Regarding the backlogs, though, do you have some sort of processing of backlogs versus renewals, how you're going to do it versus the new ones that come in? Are you going to do all the backlogs first?
Yes. So the backlogs, and what we'll generally do is we work with the council office because we realize that there are different problems within the district. And so we do try to be responsive to the priorities of the council office. But since we're talking about eliminating the backlog, we really need to focus on doing that first before we move to something else. But again, we'll work with the different council offices.
So I guess technically a new permit, if they applied today, would be 6 months.
A new permit, it would be probably about 6 to 9 months before we can deal with it because we will be dealing with the backlog.
Yeah, so it'll be, assuming it takes 9 months to do all the backlogs, it'll be 9 plus 6, so it'll be 15 months.
And then as we continue to work through the new requests, we hope to just bring that down to 6 months.
I'm completely fine with that. I just want to make sure that you guys prioritize, and if you could work with the different council offices,
Absolutely.
especially in my office,
Yeah.
because anytime a PPD gets approved, every single one of the backlog, the 50 or so, are all complaining, saying, "Why did they get it, and not us? We've been longer, and we get a flood of calls." So if you could help us help you prioritize our
Absolutely.
backlog list.
And we try to do that.
Okay. So I remember a while back you said a new permit will take 4 months, but what's the previous process? What did it take?
So the previous process was, assuming ideal case, everything went smoothly, people submitted the petitions in a timely manner, 9 months.
9 months, okay.
Yeah.
And
so
the new process will be 6.
New process, we brought it down to 5.5 months, but we realized in the beginning there may be some glitches, so we're saying just roughly 6 months.
Okay. Because when I go on to the constituency and they ask me the questions, I want to make sure I get the same answer. Another question about the process. Once the letter of interest from the community comes out and you guys go out to see if there's any other measures that could be done, and then the petition is given out. And I know even though there's a petition, DOT still needs to assess it to see if it qualifies, right?
Yes.
Is there any way you could do the assessment before the petition goes out, or if there's some sort of general hot sheet that shows which areas don't qualify? Because there's those rare occasions where the community does a petition and they assume that just because they did the petition, they're going to get it. And then when the DOT study comes back for correct reason that it doesn't qualify, then, you get a lot of angry constituents.
I think we might have a little bit more flexibility with the new procedure that we're doing. Before, it would have been very difficult because sometimes we would do the study, if we were to do the studies, and then it didn't meet the petition requirements, we've spent a lot of staff time and resources for something that the community didn't even want. It's going to be a little bit different now that, because we've changed the procedures, instead of doing license plate studies, trying to figure out who is, staying within the district versus who's a visitor, and having to, take a process that took at least 2 weeks, we think we have something that could be done within a couple days.
Okay.
And so it will allow us those flexibilities for those special circumstances, but I think we still want to try to hold true and find out, does the community really want this improvement? And if they do, then we can find ways to do things simultaneously.
So So I'm more concerned about the once in a while when the area doesn't qualify for a PPD. So if you could, maybe part of the petition application, give some examples of previous examples where the area doesn't qualify or what constitutes an area not to have a PPD. So just so they know in advance that just because they finish with the petition, there could still be rejected.
Yeah, and what we'll do is very upfront, the staff is very good at this, at letting people know what are the requirements, what are the minimum thresholds. You could have areas where, say, for instance, it's going to be a preferential parking district that has a minimum of 6 blocks. That's a requirement. But then you have support for only 5 blocks.
Right.
And, that's a reality. But then in that case, may be able to qualify under a temporary preferential parking district.
I just want to flag that one of the things that Ken has proposed is putting together a much better user-friendly parking website. And not just to address this problem, but to put up, for example, the procedures that you're likely to encounter if you want to get a citation, if you want to appeal a citation, right? There's a whole host of ways that the public interacts with the department around parking, and right now it's it's opaque, and it's not clear to people how they can work with us. And so that's an example of something that we would fold into that, kind of fatal flaw screen. There's some sort of basic things that would disqualify you, and then here's some other examples of things that might mean that you don't meet the criteria.
Like if it's a major thoroughfare, it doesn't qualify or something like that, right?
Well, it's really intended for the residential districts. But what we can do is we can extend the preferential parking district to that thoroughfare.
Okay.
So the border can go against that thoroughfare. But as Salita said, we do have a number of plans that as we go forward, we do want to increase the accountability, the transparency, and being able to provide as much information through the website to the user, to the residents as possible. So laying out the process, making the petition available online, giving a status if we can. And so we have a whole host of ideas that we want to do that we're going to be working towards this current year.
Okay. And I think for the, in your process, I saw the PowerPoint, community noticing period for public hearings. Is it currently 72 hours?
The notice, no.
The new process?
Well, the new process is the minimum's going to be the Brown Act, but we're really going to exceed that.
Okay.
And so our intent is whenever anything's going to be going to Transportation Commission, we're going to have that open dialogue with who is the representative from the community, who is we're working with in the council office to make sure that the community knows that this is coming to the Transportation Commission. But again, the Brown Act is the minimum requirement.
Okay. Yeah, but if you could make it into a rule, at least 2 to 4 weeks, because that would be.
It just depends on when it's going to be scheduled for commission, and sometimes we don't know that far in advance when it will be scheduled for commission. And I see the city attorney wants to say something.
We generally don't vary from the Brown Act requirements. You set different standards, you run into a lot of problems if you can't meet those standards, and you could shortchange something actually coming to the committee if you set a longer deadline. If somebody wants to do a special meeting, or it would really interfere with the Brown Act requirements.
But we do intend to have that open dialogue with the council office as well as the community to make them aware, as soon as we're aware of when something's going to be scheduled. We do want that support.
Yeah. So, you could work with the city attorney's office. However, giving the community groups as an ample notice as possible would be great. And a last question. There was some confusion in my office when they spoke with you guys about the vetting of the petition. Who vets the petitions?
So the petition, when it's signed by the community, it goes to our office, and then we verify.
Okay.
Because we just need to make sure that sometimes we get people signing off as Mickey Mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Need to find out, okay, is this person real? We know that's not Mickey Mouse. So we do need to verify that that is a legitimate signature, that that person does reside within the district, and we need to do our due diligence in verifying to make sure that these are legitimate residents.
So we do the verifying.
So DOT.
In short, yes.
Well, I'm really thankful to you guys for doing this. There's a lot of backlog in my district as well, I'm sure, along with everyone else. So as long as you make it consistent, and I am all for doing the backlog and renewals first before we do the new applications.
Thank you.
Mr.
Going back to budget, so you are saying that as you figure out the workload and you fill in these positions, you'll be able to manage this without additional budget?
We hope.
Okay.
We hope. I think we'll get better
There's other costs
sense.
associated with this other than staff. Do you have sufficient budget for that as well?
Yes,
Yes.
we do.
And any fees associated with this?
The fees, yeah, the fees
Are
are,
they again?
they're existing, they're established. We're not proposing to increase the fees. We're keeping them the same.
What are those?
Oh, I'm sorry. For a permanent permit, I believe it's about for an annual permit, I believe it's about $34. For a visitor permit, is it 22.50? And for a daily one-day guest permit, I believe it's about $2.50.
Okay. And I'm just thinking out loud here. I don't even know if it applies or not, but is there some type of discrepancy between lower income and wealthier communities with respect to who we see can't have these because of the costs associated with this, the fees, et cetera? Have we thought about that? I don't know the answer to that.
And in the past, I can't say because I don't know. I'm a relatively newcomer, but I believe that when we look at establishing the fees, we look at it citywide to maintain the administration and to be able to provide the permits. So I can't say that we've done that, but we can definitely look into it.
Yeah,
We
just
can provide a map to your office of where all of the current BPDs are, so you can take a look at a glance and see. Sometimes the barrier is fiscal, sometimes it's something else. You know, some of the communities don't know how to access a program like this, they're not aware of it, or they're just not familiar or comfortable engaging with the government. So, you know, really interested in finding out ways to overcome those barriers so that we have good coverage where this is a need.
Okay, thank you. And I think the general sense in our office was that given the moratorium, we just stopped. We just kept telling constituents that it wasn't available. It's good to see that we're moving forward.
Yeah.
Now, let's assume this works great. People are taking advantage of it. We're happy. We're moving these through as quickly as they come within 5 months or less. And have we thought about what if we start having a city of, preferential parking permit districts all over the city? Is that good or bad? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah.
What would happen then?
We have, and we have to see. I mean, there's areas where
We're not there yet, so
we're not there yet, but we have thought about that. And there's some areas where, say, for instance, the Coastal Commission may object if it's anywhere near the coast. But we're really looking at the criteria that we've established to have reasonable guidelines. Because if it does meet the criteria, then there is a problem and they deserve help.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you.
One more question, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Los Angeles' coastal zone does not have any preferential parking districts because of the coastal zone, because we don't have enough parking. Mr. Kretz?
Yeah, probably not the first issue that you'll undertake, but one problem that does exist is near some of the dense shopping areas, some of the shopkeepers are actually buying guest permits from the residents. I know of a few examples in my neighborhood between 3rd Street and Beverly, both of which are very desirable and a lot of business activity. So I don't know if we're looking at trying to figure out how to identify those and eliminate them. But I wouldn't say it's the highest priority among all of these, but at some point we should look at addressing those also.
Yes, is a short answer. And, we are aware of the black market, and my perspective is that if it's happening anyway, then we need to regulate it in some way. We didn't want to take it on in this first tranche of rulemaking because we just wanted to deal with the sort of the worst problems that we have. But that's in the next bucket of issues that we need to comb through is how do we balance that tension between the need for employee parking versus the preserving the program for what it was created for. Ultimately, I think to Councilman Huizar's question as well as your question, Councilman Koretz, this program was originally created to prevent intrusion into residential neighborhoods, but it's going to evolve into the way that we manage parking as a resource. Because as these things spread throughout the city and as there are more demands for parking at different times of day and we want to use that scarce resource efficiently as possible, we may need to be more nimble in the way that we think about who has access to these. But that's sort of going to be an extremely robust discussion, and we didn't want to try and boil the whole ocean with this first set. But yes, it's on our radar.
And I'm not suggesting that you do it early in the process. I just wanted to put it on your radar screen.
But to your point, I just wanted to also point out that when it comes to fraudulent passes, we have incorporated safety features into these. But then we realize that there's also other people that may try to sell their legitimate passes. And so we have gotten reports, people calling in, letting us know, and we do investigate. But we are going to continue to try to work that and thwart any kind of efforts of manipulating the system.
And I can say I don't know exactly who they are, but I know there are at least several people in my neighborhood that I know have purchased them and have mentioned it in passing to my neighbors.
So before you take action, if I could just say one thing about this whole effort, I really want to recognize the excellent work of Ken Husting to pull this together. This is something that I've wanted to tackle since I got here because it's such an important constituent and customer service thing that we offer. There's not a lot of things where residents ask us for something and we can give it to them. And this is one of those. And so to have that broken is not acceptable. And I want to recognize the model that we use to take care of this. And we really did pull in a strike team, people from the transit group, people from the district offices, people from the parking group, people from administration, all came together as a team to try and do this in a way that we wouldn't have been able to if we had asked the current team to sort of take it on. So I'm hoping it's a model that we can explore for other things that we struggle with, but I think it worked really well here and just want to congratulate and thank them for their work.
And just to continue the kumbaya moment, I just want to say that I want to thank the general manager and also the council members for the support. It's really Salita's leadership and her passion to fixing the existing problems that led to this working group to address a problem and create this new model. So just thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. I've got a list of other things we can use that model strike force on, I'm sure.
Yeah, me too.
Just a couple last questions, though. You talked about how much it costs for a visitor placard or tag.
Yeah.
Do the folks who live in the area, do they also have an annual fee for getting their annual tag?
Yes. So there's an annual permit, and then there's the visitor permit, and then the one-day guest permit.
And how many annual permits are allowable per household?
I believe it's 3 per household.
3 per household, and then if you had two parents, 2 adult kids, you'd need to get a recurring
visitor permit.
pass.
That's 4 months.
And how does one actually physically get the pass?
You need to go to, in the beginning, you have to open an account at one of the centers and provide proof, that you actually live at the residence and provide different types of proof. Afterwards, I think we're going to be moving it towards trying to get an online system to where it's not nearly as cumbersome. But definitely when you're opening up in the beginning, we need you to come in and show the proof at one of our visitor centers.
And where are those locations?
Gosh, off the top of my head, do you guys? Felix, you want?
And how many are there?
I'm Felix, management analyst. There's 4 of them throughout the city of LA. There's one in the Valley on Van Nuys Boulevard. There's one in downtown on 2nd Street. The third one is in Westwood Boulevard.
And then the mall. No, excuse me. 2nd Street, no. Lafayette. Lafayette.
No, yeah, there's, why am I missing the 4th one? No. Yeah, there's Westwood, or West LA, downtown, Valley.
Wilshire.
And,
She's saying Wilshire.
I'm sorry, Wilshire.
We can get that to you.
So, Mid-Wilshire, I'm sorry.
Okay, but it illustrates my point. It's probably a huge pain in the butt to get these. You've got to go during a workday, presumably. I mean, we're not open evenings and weekends, and there's not a lot of them in the city. So in addition to what I anticipate will be the direction of the committee to approve these guidelines, I'd like to get a report back, say in 90 days, on what we can do to make the process of getting these more customer-friendly.
Sure.
Because I think that still is a big hurdle for folks.
And that is our goal, to really become more online, website interaction, to just facilitate that for everybody.
Right. And if someone moves into an area where there's a pre-existing PPD, what do they do to actually get their permits? They go to the same place?
Yes.
And what if they don't even know the number of, what PPD it is? Will folks know just based on the address?
Yeah.
Okay.
They look it up and they'll have that information.
Okay, great. All right.
Can I?
Mr. Rue?
I was going to ask this offline, but since you brought it up, I mean, I fully concur with you, Mr. Chair. I actually had to go get my PPD. Very inconvenient. No parking. So I went to the downtown location. Good thing I could walk. But yeah, if you could really, I know the first time, especially with what Councilmember Corretz brought up, there is some sort of fraud going on, so it's important. I understand the first time for you to come personally, but I don't know, if you could think of any other way, I would be very open to that. And as Councilmember Bonin said, I moved. And if you're licensed, the only form of ID you could prove is your driver's license. It needs to be an official, I guess, the official document. And my driver's license had the old address. So I could only qualify for a visitor permit. So if you could.
In the rules, we did need a photo ID to just verify who you were. But then there's other forms that could be shown to prove that you live in the new residence. And so, for instance, utility bill.
I had to provide the driver's license and 2 utility bills. So, but my driver's license didn't have the new address. Yeah. Even though I had the change card, but that doesn't count. It needs your picture on it. So, I mean, if you could somehow be a little bit more flexible.
I think we did a little bit in this already, but we obviously can continue to tweak it as we think it's needed.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So I didn't want that to take away from the significance of what you've done. We'll do that as a report back on a separate track. But going from 2 years to 6 months is a huge deal. Having worked so hard to eliminate this backlog is a really big deal. And I just want to thank you and underscore how big a deal this is. So thanks.
Thank you very much.
So sounds like without objection.
We have some amending recommendations or substitute recommendations that we worked with the department and the city attorney. So substitute. So instead of the 3 that are listed, we would have number 1, approve the attached revised rules and procedures for preferential parking districts as the basis to modify LAMC section 80.58, which is the preferential parking program. 2, request the city attorney with assistance of the Department of Transportation to prepare within 30 days any changes required to the municipal code section 80.50, and then add number 3, which is direct DOT to report in 90 days with recommendations on making the program more customer friendly.
Okay. So before we do that, however, we have the pleasure of 60 seconds with Mr. Spindler. So you guys want to make some room.
You can only buy these permits where you pay parking tickets. That's why there's only 4 areas. But as far as Councilman Rue is concerned, his experience of showing the ID and a bill should have been enough. So for them to tell him he needed to change his driver's license and put the new address on it is wrong. That is not department policy. I've seen people buy these things. Why do they do it to him? Because he's Asian. That's why they do it. So he should be filing a complaint for what happened, because the only thing he had to do was show his driver's license, current, and a current utility bill. That's it. So they put him through this bull, and they do this with people on an ad hoc basis. And then the one in Van Nuys is just horrible. Dirty, filthy office. Upgrade that office. It's a disaster.
Thank you. All right, so without objection, that item is approved. Thank you, DOT. That brings us to item number 14.
Item number 14 is a DOT report relative to extending a contract with Safe Moves until December 31st, 2016 to conduct bicycle and pedestrian safety and transit education to elementary schools in the city.
Michelle?
Michelle Mallory, Senior Project Coordinator with the Active Transportation Division. We have before you a request that LADOT have the authority to execute an amendment with the existing contractor, Safe Move, to continue our school bicycle pedestrian safety and transit education program. The program has been in the city since 1983, not with the same contractor, but the Safe Moves contractor has been around for several years. probably since about 1990, but Pat could tell you exactly when. The program is ongoing. We put a new RFP out on January 8th. It's actually listed on the city site right now. We are looking forward to accepting bids to the contract, or bids to the RFP on March 18th. We have a bidders conference next week. The program has been a huge success with hundreds of thousands of children being educated through the city about bicycling, pedestrian, walking, and transit education. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Just a quick question. I'm not all that familiar with the contract. What exactly does the contractor do?
So essentially, the education program is implemented in LAUSD and private schools throughout the city. We seek to reach about a third of all elementary and middle schools every year, and we ask the contractor to rotate that through a different third of schools, so we reach all elementary and middle schools over a 3-year period. They implement a series of activities, including rodeos and seminars in the class and in the auditorium, using bicycling, walking, and in the case of the current contractor, the bicycle rodeos have a virtual city that the kids walk and bicycle through.
So over a 3-year period, every school, elementary and middle, is covered?
That's the goal.
Okay. Has that goal been met?
We get very close. We never get to 100%.
What I'm curious about is whether or not there's any areas of the city geographically that have wound up being underserved.
Not really. One of the deliverables in the contract, and at the end of every contractual year, the contractor is required to provide us a GIS map of all the schools throughout the city. So we continue to survey and determine whether or not we're getting a good geographic spread.
Okay. If you could provide a copy of that to the members of the committee. I just want to make sure, double check that we're not leaving out pockets in the city. And how many firms have expressed interest in the RFP?
I'm sorry?
How many firms have expressed interest so far?
We don't know yet. We've talked to about a half a dozen. Currently, we won't know until the bids actually come in, but we've talked to a few who are interested. There was an amendment posted on Monday with a number of questions asked by one of the potentials.
And we asking for anything different in the RFP than we've been asking for in the contract for the past 20 years?
It is a little different than what we've done before. In the past, we've stuck to the bicycle rodeo seminar sort of outline. In this RFP, we have a format. We give the contractor, the new bidder, an opportunity to do one of two things. In a format proposed by the program contractor, so they can give us an entirely new program than what we've asked for before. They can give us a bid in a format developed by the program coordinator and LADOT staff with input from the city's Bicycle Advisory Committee and Pet Advisory Committee, or they can give us a bid on what's been done in the past. It's the kind of same old, same old. I can talk about the goals of the program, and I'm reading directly from the RFP, so we don't have any information that's not already available publicly through the bidders. But the goals of this program are to encourage parents and schools to support bicycling and walking, to encourage better traveling habits by motorists, to provide students with an education regarding the laws and rules of the road while bicycling, walking, and taking transit, to increase bicycle helmet compliance, to provide this program to as many students as the funding permits, to implement the program cost effectively, and to decrease risk-taking, such as deliberate violations of traffic control rules. There are a few other things that we've added this year that are different than we have done in years past. For instance, again, I mentioned the decreasing risk-taking. We have also asked the contractor to provide after-school activities via electronic media. That's something we haven't explored before. We have asked for a list of the schools to be visited each month. We usually get a list of that, but we'd like to have them within a month so we can assess where the contractor, what site that they will be on. We have asked the contractor to, let's see, that's not the right one, excuse me. We've changed the weighting of the program. In the past, the weighting of the program was based on cost effectiveness and the professional competence of the bidder. We've actually put the weight of the contractor, or the weight of the bid in the adequacy of methods, so what the program is that they're going to deliver to us. We've also added things like asked the contractor to do a website for the program. We've asked the contractor to provide electronic reporting by the schools rather than give us paper stuff. That's a quick summary.
Thank you. Ms. Martinez, Mr. Fritz.
So based on your experience with the previous contractor, are there any lessons learned or best practices that you've now have called for in this new RFP?
It's not so much lessons learned or that we've had a problem with the existing contractor. It's more of an interest in moving into the future and addressing kids at a level with activities that they're already involved in. We know kids use electronic media and involved in electronic media, so we touch on this in the new RFP.
That's something that the previous contractor wasn't providing for us?
It's something that we did not include in the RFP for the previous contractor to deliver.
Are there any challenges that you expect with this new RFP?
Not with the new RFP per se. Councilmember Bonin alluded to coverage throughout the city. One of the issues the contractor has had is getting LAUSD to allow them on the school sites. And, that's based on what LAUSD has going, whether testing's involved, whether the school wants to host a program. Those are generally the obstacles that the program has to overcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Kretz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the current program just provides presentations on how to cycle more safely and how to avoid traffic hazards.
It's not just a presentation. The rodeos, which we call festivals in the new RFP, are actively take kids through a virtual city. The program is actually set up on site. Kids cycle through with the assistance of educators who take them through the program and teach them how to act on streets.
So we don't, as part of this, actually do anything to ensure that their route is safe. We just educate about how to avoid hazards.
Not through this contract, but there are programs in place, including a Safe Routes to School mapping that DOT does that addresses on-street conditions that's separate from what this is. This is primarily an education program.
So, and the Safe Routes, actually checking out the route and trying to make it safer, doesn't exist everywhere. It's a somewhat limited program, correct?
I believe, and this isn't my area of expertise, but I believe we are required to do Safe Routes to School maps for all the schools. That's something we'd have to get back to you and check, but I believe that that's a requirement the DOT does. In addition to that, there are certainly schools in the Vision Zero network that are high priority schools. We have the 50 high priority schools in the city that are slated to get preferential treatment. And those are projects that are being explored through ATP funding and others to make those safer schools.
Is there any potential liability for the city in encouraging kids to take bicycles to school in areas where we haven't made the route safer?
So I'm not an attorney. So I don't know how I should address this.
Short answer is no. What we're doing is trying to teach kids the basics on how to walk and bike safely, no matter where or why they're doing it in their own neighborhoods. So it's more about, we have schools where students are already biking to school, and this is sort of fortify, and walking to school as well, because it's not just about biking. And then to your earlier question, we do want to provide sort of safe routes to school maps for all of the schools, but we have focused our time and attention on the top 50, where we're combining, sort of working with the school to identify safe routes and combining that with infrastructure to actually make improvements where they're needed.
So presumably those are the 50 highest priority in terms of danger needing correction.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, we have a public comment from...
There it is, $300,000 a year for this. Waste of money. And that's what it is. It's a waste of money because you don't have to teach kids about bicycles and pedestrian safety and transit education. It's just very simple. What are you going to do? You're going to go into schools and go, you need to lock your bikes up, kids. Don't leave your bikes unlocked. Watch and make sure you don't enter the intersection if you see people turning hard right against a red light. And
transit education. You want to grow up and buy a fucking car and not have to take public transportation, because that's like living in a van down by the river, Loserville. So that's what you want to teach the kids, right, Nuri? Right.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved and seconded without objection. That item is approved. And that clears the desk. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
We almost made it. We wouldn't be the sixth to do it.